What's up everyone? Welcome to rule number 2 here, and in this video we will look at how to make your habits more attractive. And here it's all about wanting or craving the reward. So the craving phase of habits, how can we make our habits more attractive? How can we build this desire for our desired habits? And the more attractive a behavior is, the more likely it is to become a habit. Think about this. The more attractive a behavior is, the more likely it is to become a habit. Without desire, there's no will to take action. So it becomes extremely difficult for specific behaviors to make a habit. That's similar to the section where I discuss purpose and why you do the things you do. A strong why is linked to a strong desire to do something. So it fuels your desire to take action. So 4 principles to make your habits attractive. First principle, identify your why for a specific behavior. So again, similar to one of the first video on purpose, identify reasons why it's important for you to do this habit. Make it more attractive by identifying why it's important. Remember, you can use the drill down technique from that earlier video on purpose. Let's say you want to study poker more. Why is that important? Well, because I can improve at the game. And why is that important? Because by becoming better, I can make more money. And why making more money is important? Maybe because I can take better support of myself and my family financially. So you go from something that seems like a mundane habit, studying poker, to really digging deep into how important that might be for you. And for me personally, it feels much more inspiring to frame studying poker as an opportunity to provide for myself and my family in the long run than to just think about studying poker. So I like this idea of framing a mundane habit or something that might be neutral and make it something much more inspiring, like providing for myself and my family. And it's also strongly connected to your desire for autonomy. So you could use the same habit, studying poker, but with attached to another strong desire. Maybe your desire to feel competent, to become better than other players. So again, in this example, you study poker because you want to improve at the game, but it's not about the money. It's more about becoming better than other opponents. So maybe here you're trying to dig into your feeling of competence, trying to cultivate your feeling of competence by studying more. So it's really dependent to each individual, but typically our motivation is driven by one or each of these 3 factors. Our desire for competence, so beating our opponents, playing well, expressing our skills. Our desire for autonomy, feeling like we have the capacity to provide for ourselves. And our desire for relatedness, to feel like we belong or to feel connected. So keep that in mind. Principle number 2. Here, we're trying to pair an action that we need to do with an action that we want to do. And that's called temptation bundling. Something you need to do and something that you want to do intrinsically. Something that you already enjoy doing and you find attractive. Something that you really want to do it. And I think this is my favorite example of all time. And it's cleaning the dishes and listening to a podcast. Like cleaning the dishes, that's something that I need to do. Like I can't get away from that chore. Actually, this was the designated chores for me in the house. And listening to a podcast, that's something that I really want to do, that I really enjoy doing. So guess what? I pair these 2 together and it works so well that I'm now looking forward to have dishes to clean just so that I can listen to a podcast. Because like, who wants to just sit down and listen to a podcast? Now I found a productive way to do two activities: washing the dishes and listening to a podcast. And what's quite impressive with this is I now want and I'm looking forward to washing the dishes. So that's how strong this principle can be. And now that I'm explaining this, I'm trying to think of other examples related to poker. It could be something as simple as studying and listening to music. Or if you're even like next level, you could set up a treadmill under your desk and play or study poker as you're walking. So shout out here to Sauce1223 and his videos while walking on the treadmill. So that's another way to pair an action that you want to do with an action that you need to do. Maybe you want to play poker, but maybe you also need to stay in physical shape. So how about you pair these two activities together? Principle number 3, just join a group where your desired habit is the norm, where your habits that you're wanting to develop is the standard. So your habits, your personal development, your growth is actually shaped by the people you spend most of your time with. So think about this for a second. Your habits, your personal development, your growth is shaped or will be shaped by the people you spend most of your time with. And you don't have to look so far to actually find people with similar goals or aspirations. Just join the BPZ Discord community, for example. And similarly, you can also create a study group with fellow poker players. It now becomes more attractive to perform a behavior because it fulfills some of your basic needs that I mentioned earlier. Maybe by being part of a study group, it allows you to feel more competent by figuring out strategies about the game. Maybe you feel more autonomous because you took charge of your own development and growth. And also maybe you have this feeling of belonging in the group when you share new ideas or concepts around poker with other people. So that's how joining a community can be powerful. You can do the exact same thing for any behavior you're looking to develop. It could be around fitness, nutrition, reading, sports, etc. And to give a specific example from my life, I used to run 3 or 4 times a week, and I was running with my partner. And since my partner stopped running, I can barely count on my 2 hands how many times I went for a run now. And that's how powerful it can be. I associated running with spending time with my partner, which I found was something attractive, but it's no longer an opportunity to do so. And so I lost the desire to do this behavior because it's no longer as attractive going for a run alone. And so maybe a solution for me would be to join a community of runners to help me with that. Or maybe I could start listening to podcasts while running. So sounds like that could be motivating for me. So what kind of community or what kind of people you want to surround yourself with to make those activities more attractive? Now let's look at principle number 4. Reframing your mindset around difficult and challenging habits. And here we're going to change or use one simple word. We no longer have to do something. Instead, we get to do something. So what was once a burden, having to do something, now becomes an opportunity. I get to do this thing. So instead of I have to study poker this morning, it's more I get or I have an opportunity to improve my game by studying poker this morning. So I have to study poker. I get to study poker to improve my game this morning. It's a small change, small enough that you might even not notice it. You might even think it's stupid when I'm telling you this, but I'm telling you it's making a huge difference mentally. So try to catch yourself whenever you start a sentence by I have to, and try to reframe it to I get to do this thing. And I know some of you are very competitive players, like most poker players are. So I have an example that might hit home here. I was working once with an esport athlete who wanted to improve his general fitness by running. However, there was this one time he told me that it sucks when it's raining outside because he can't go out for a run. So I kind of asked him, what's actually stopping you from going for a run anyways, right? And so he looked at me for a second and then said, yeah, you're actually right. There's nothing stopping me from going for a run even when it rains. So we try to use this principle of reframing your mindset around difficult habits by changing the situation, or by changing this burden of having to go for a run when it rains. And we transformed it into an opportunity to challenge himself in a tougher environment. Something to get out of his comfort zone. So it was now an opportunity to stay in shape and build his mental resilience. So it's no longer I have to go for a run even if it rains. It's I get to go for a run even if it rains, so that I can challenge myself in a tougher environment. So I'm sure you can figure out ways to use that when playing poker. Typically I hear players talk about having to play a certain tournament that is less motivating. Well, how about in those situations you get to outplay your opponent? You get to challenge your skills against better players, or you get to actually challenge your skills against weaker players. So whenever you play a tournament that is less attractive, less motivating, think about ways that you can make it a new challenge. Think about ways that you can make it more attractive. So the question here is, what is the opportunity in this situation? What are you missing out on? Now let's look at how we can make bad habits unattractive using some of the previous principles. So you could remind yourself of why it's important for you not to do this habit. So we're kind of doing the opposite of reminding ourselves why it's important. Here we're trying to find reasons why it would be important not to do a certain habit. So what are the benefits of not doing this bad habit? So let's think about all the time that you might get frustrated about a situation in poker. You might have this desire to punt the rest of your stack the very next hand. And that's a great opportunity to remind yourself that if you don't do it, you still have a chip in a chair. That might sound ridiculous, but I think there's some potential with using this strategy in game. So whenever you feel frustrated, angry, or tilted, whenever you feel the urge to do a bad play, remind yourself of the benefits of not pulling the trigger. Remind yourself of the benefits of not acting on your emotion, not acting on your emotional tension. This is something that we spoke about earlier, to not act on the emotional tension. And just another principle about making it unattractive. Earlier, I mentioned how your environment and the people you surround yourself with are important to building good habits. Well, if you have bad habits, chances are you might have to leave some people behind. Chances are some people might be influencing those behaviors. And so we don't have all the same aspirations in life. Some people might be dragging you down instead of lifting you up. So that might be something to think about. I remember back in my 20s, people were going out on weekends and I stayed home playing poker and going to bed early so I could start my Sunday grind fresh. So in those situations, I actually had to let go or accept that some relationships were not for me. But I also got to build new ones with people that had the same aspirations in poker. So what ended up happening actually is I started living in a house with 4 or 3 other poker players. So that's one way to join a community or create an environment where you're sharing the similar aspirations. And that's one way to also remove some of the negative influences in your life. So that's it for how to make your behaviors or your habits more attractive. See you in the next video, everyone. Take care.